Bill and I started to circle each other off the shiny list about a year and a half ago. He's an OG head in the new media art scene, and he's worked with some of the most iconic groups and projects in our community. Dolly, Future Forward, Nonotak, Obscura, GMunk, VT Pro, Leviathan. He's been around the block, and he literally knows everyone doing anything cool with tech art. Just recently, we started working together in a professional context, and I thought it was about time we did an episode together. You should check this one out, if for no other reason than to listen to us gossip like old grandpas and reminisce of stories about the heat of battle. I consider Bill a good friend at this point, somebody who really understands the game, and I can talk to about the challenges that I face putting together crews and running my company. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. It's a good one.
Honestly, I didn't sleep super well last night. My dog had like some diarrhea apparently. I have no idea why. And it's just like, and I got jumped onto this project, and it was sort of like, it felt like just passed the hot potato around, and all of a sudden, like today, like there's good progress, so it feels better. But I just like, it was like 3:30 in the morning, and I've been up, and I've just been up. So I was like, fuck. And then all of a sudden, in the little meeting thing, and I was like, oh shit, that's right, we're gonna do this tonight. It's gonna be fun. So
Right.
I'm excited
Do you have I just got this Aura ring, right? And it tells you like all the different metrics about your sleep. And it's funny because it gives you this sense of guilt. Like when you fuck up a night of sleep and you like see your sleep score, you're like, oh shit, man, that's a shitty score. And then you're trying to go for the high score, right? So it's like,
I get good sleep. Like 8, 9, 10 hours, especially when the freelance. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Well, one of the things that I'm realizing is that going to sleep and waking up 8 hours later, you actually, like looking at my stats, it takes me about about an hour and a half less actual sleep than the amount of time I'm in bed, which is one of the metrics that it tracks, is like time in bed versus actual sleep. And it's remarkable how accurate it is. It's like it knows when you're sleeping.
That's wild. Crazy. Yeah, my friend Casey has one, and yeah, the rings, I think, because there's the Whoop bracelets that Patrick Mahomes has invested a bunch of money in, and then there's the Apple Watches and stuff, and they're supposed to do all that. But the rings and the that Whoop watch, I think, is pretty cool technology.
I don't think I've ever heard of the Whoop. Is that like a different? I guess it's a different like health tracker.
Yeah, I think so. But WHOOP, they're out of Boston, and yeah, okay. Mahomes threw like, I don't know, 40, 60 mil at them or something like that. And it was just like, go and invest. And like, they're hiring all sorts of people. But yeah, it's just sort of like a cool little band. But the one that's on your ring is pretty cool. So,
well, it's very specific to sleep. It does do like workout tracking and everything, which is kind of cool, because even like working out affects your sleep. And there's all these things where you're just, when you have the data, you have the metrics, you can see how what you do, like drinking this beer before bed will affect my sleep. You know what I mean? And it's like, you can see how all these things correlate and like add up to, good sleep or bad sleep. And then you can really, when you get a shitty night's sleep and you can see that, you can see all the metrics, and you're like, wow, yeah, I actually do feel crappy. Like all day today, I felt crappy. And you're like, okay, so this is why sleep is important.
It is a little bit. Not going to lie, I was not going to obviously back out on you 20 minutes in, or, 20 minutes to go and be like, let's reset this up. But I was like, damn, it was definitely like, I was like,
well, we don't have to, man. Like if you're not feeling it, we don't have to, but like, this is all this is. It's just like,
it's just a conversation.
I just want to shoot the shit with you for like an hour or something.
Yeah, exactly. I listened to, a couple of the intros with a few of the other people, just to try to like catch up and like see and whatever. So it's cool. Yeah. I'm looking forward to like, cause we don't really like know each other like super well. Like I obviously see like your posts and respect a lot about, digital ambiance, and respect honestly, like kind of the hustle that you're kind of doing here a little bit, which, it's a thing, and like being relevant in the scene.
Well, honestly, man, it's, I actually kind of got a little bit burnt out couple of years back, and it was like one of those moments where I was like, why am I doing this? And then it was like, oh, right, because I really love light art. And then it was like, I went on this trip around Europe, right? And I just hit up all of these different light art crews, and I was just like, hey, I'm going to be in town. Let's hang out. Let's get a beer. And I had such a good time, man. And then I was like, I just realized how much I like talking to the light artists and like shooting the shit about light art. And I'm like, I should do a podcast.
It's fun. I mean, light art is definitely something like I love to play around with, and like have been fortunate enough to be involved in sort of like the back end and the curation and the, although I don't really like that word curation, but like just understanding like the build without actually being a true developer, but just having a certain common sense about it, and then listening and just picking up the pieces as I've gone through my career as it's been.
Well, dude, your
um,
portfolio is spectacular, and I just, that's another thing. I really want to know. Like, you were working for Leviathan, right? At one point in Chicago, and that is a
yeah,
name. That is a name that everybody should know and should respect if they're in this industry, because that company has done some remarkable installations.
yeah, I had a kind of a little permalance thing with Leviathan. It was right kind of around the time when a lot of those studios were kind of being kind of acquired, and there was some stuff going on. But really good friends with Chad and Jason still, and so we had a little thing worked out. But I came to Chicago from San Francisco because I was at Dolly and Obscura before that, and Obscura is kind of like
I
where I
didn't know
got.
you worked for Obscura.
Yeah, Obscura is kind of where I got my feet wet in this like experiential world.
Yeah,
Yeah, a friend of mine was a receptionist, I guess, at Obscura, and she's like, "You'd be really good at this job." And I was just like, "Really? Like, I can't even tell what you guys really do there." And it was like, I must have been 2009, 2010 kind of thing. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I went to Obscura and started kind of there with Barry Through, who's a good friend, and Phil
Barry, I know
Renari.
Barry. I knew Travis.
And yeah, and I know Travis, and obviously all the heads of state that were there a little over a
Yeah.
decade ago. Um, but I did that for a couple of years and really like got like, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of a funny story, but pretty much tired of the job that I had, which was just sort of like knowing about companies and trying to do the extra work and whatever. But it was just like a good like entry level like understanding of like the advertising and like production space. But I was like done with that and kind of got hired on the spot at Obscura. And the gentleman that hired me was like, "Can you be down here in like 6 days?" And I was like, "I live in Portland right now. Like, I have to break my lease. I have to terminate, all of these things." And I think we made it like 12 days, but we made it happen. And yeah, we were doing product development, was working with like some of your contemporaries from Light Switch over in the Bay, Norm Schwab,
Light switch
and,
or light form?
Light Switch.
What's
They
light
do,
switch?
oh, they do like really pretty high end contemporary, not so much light art, more so, yeah, yes and no, but like, like light on the outside of architecture. But
I
like,
think I actually have heard of them, and it's amazing that our paths haven't crossed, and I don't know them as well as some of the other. Yeah, I mean, they are in the Bay. I do know that name, and no, I've not crossed paths with them like at all.
oh man, you should definitely just to know people. But this guy, Mike Mao, who was like an intern at the time, and I just like became friends, and we built these massive 6 and 8 foot spheres that have these like central diodes in it that had a bunch of LEDs and things, and it all tied back to our show control system. And as they would change colors and orbs and things like that, it was just like crazy, interesting, wild stuff that we were doing.
That's
I don't want
super
to say
cool.
15 years ago, but a while ago. But
That was the
yeah,
previous generation, man. And there's like
it
DA is 10
was.
years old. We're like cresting a decade now. And yeah, it's like there's this whole generation that came before, and it is like the Obscuras, and then there's yeah, a bunch of architectural light art companies that yeah, and they're still around. It's like, where are they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and light switch has been around for like 25, 30 years, and they're like
Wow.
kind of sprinkled all over, and they work with, I don't know, kind of the heads of the state in the game. But I don't know. I think they do pretty serious installations with like pretty major architects in and around the world. They're not
Right.
messing around with any. I'm not saying they're not going to Burning Man because they probably are, but they're having a good time.
Well, listen,
Uh,
man, Burning Man is an incubator. It's an incubator. It's like the
that's what I'm
crucible
saying.
of fire that forges artists into like, they come in green and they come out like more like jaded and more, like having a sense of like, okay, this shit doesn't work. This is how things break. A lot of my crew came from Burning Man. We've all come through Burning Man, but Burning Man is not. People are like, oh man, it's so hard to. It's like it's not that hard to make shit work for 5 days, no matter in the dust storm. It's like whatever. Try and make something last for 5 years in Miami. That's some shit.
Exactly,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
I'm more of like the 5 days, 2 weeks type of thing. Those are the type of projects that I really kind of go after. The
Yeah.
5 years in Miami or whatever this exciting project that you've got, in the British Virgin Islands might be, those are the things that are a stretch for me. I'm not saying they're, impossible, but that stuff is permanent, and that's some of the stuff that Leviathan is succeeding in right now. They're doing really, really well.
So
Um,
we've been practicing and we've been perfecting our outdoor
mhm.
installation, how to make an installation outdoor that lasts for years. And we actually just finished an installation in Miami. And let me tell you, man, that was an intense installation. It
I
was
remember you had
yeah,
told me you were in the smoke a little bit, and it was like it kind
we
of
were,
cleared, and it was like
yeah, yeah. Well, it was one
once
of those
that guts
situations where
goes,
like,
yeah.
I feel like I didn't give it the respect that it deserved. I didn't give it the time because we were understaffed and we were being pulled in a couple different directions. And the big project was the BVIs, and the small project was Miami. However, the Miami project was much more like logistically challenging because it was fast. There was tighter deadlines. We weren't friends with the client. We didn't really know the client. They were just like, look, we're paying you, do this thing, don't fuck it up. And it was like, yeah, I mean, it succeeded. We won the game, but it was definitely by the hair of our chinny chin chins, man. Like we will
Yeah,
probably never work with that client again, but at least
at
we
least you
pulled it
didn't
off.
fail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. It's like failures like that can sink a company. And that's what I saw, man. Like while we were going through, like in the heat of that install, I was just like, holy shit, if we fail and they ask for their money back, that's it. Like, I don't know where
hmm.
that money's coming from because we spent it. You know
I
what I
was
mean?
I was recently. I will abstain from saying anybody's names, clients, or companies that I was working for, but I was recently on one, and I got sort of swung into it, and it was already pitched and sold and won and designed through, and it was like go. And I'm like, there is not time to do this for this client at the level that they would need it to be done at. They're
Oh, no.
5-star, triple platinum, whatever client. Congratulations, agency. Like, great idea, but like, there's no way.
Was
It
it an
was a
ad
yeah, they're like
marketing agency?
yeah, yeah, basically. And I'm like, just like, there's no way you can pull this off, kind of a thing. And having the experience that I have and just knowing what I know, it's like you can we could have got by if the client was like, second rate kind of whatever, and we were just trying to like clear some small hurdles. But it was like, we're not pulling this off for them at anywhere close to where they're going to be. And yeah, they ultimately failed, and or we
Did you get
ultimately
thrown under the
failed.
bus?
I didn't. They managed it really, really well, and I think pulled themselves out of it pretty well. But I was just like, I can't be brought into a project and be like, "Hey, guess what? That's a super great idea. If you really want to do this and you really want to do it well, we need to focus on two things. We need to do it at this level, and we need to put a lot of money towards this and a little bit of money towards this." It was just sort of like everything to the top degree, and it just everything spread too far too thin, and it was just came back. But it was in the beginning of 2021, and 2020, as I think everybody understands, was a real rough year. And it was just like I needed a dime because of my freelancing, which has been, 6 very positive years that I'm excited about and have fantastic relationships with. But you were mentioning with your client in Miami about like, and that's kind of where these guys got to. I don't know how it
Yep.
panned out in the end, but um,
So did they bring
yeah,
you in just as like a hired gun project manager, and like they
yeah,
brought you in like late in the game?
yeah. I think if they would have brought me in 2 or 3 months earlier, we wouldn't have gone so far in these bizarre directions, and I would have been able to like reel them back a little bit,
So were
or
you a
just
technical
simply
project manager essentially?
Yeah, but kind of the project manager, sort of in charge of a lot of things. There's things that I don't do great. There's things that I do much better than others, but it was cool.
Yeah.
Not my favorite project. You'll never see it because I don't have the rights to share
Yeah,
it.
there's always those. It's
But
funny,
there's
man,
fun ones
how
we can talk about.
agencies are kind of notorious, especially in my mind. We actually don't really work with agencies very much. And I mean, a big part of that is the fact that we stopped pursuing them because every time we did an agency gig, the expectations were insane on both time and money. And they were just
Hmm.
like, yeah, we want this crazy thing in like 2 weeks for this ridiculously low budget. And it's like, well, no, and you're tempted, especially if you're a small company, you're like, I want agency work. That's a big number, but it's like, you have to compare the number, the dollar number to the ask, and you have to have the experience to understand what it's going to take to pull off
What they're asking you to pull
fucking,
off.
yeah, what they're asking you for. And if
Yeah,
those two things don't match up, and the only way you know that is through experience, and that's the only thing that keeps you out of trouble.
it's true. And sometimes you trust your gut, and sometimes your gut doesn't always work.
Sometimes you
One
have
of the last,
indigestion.
sometimes you have a little bit of indigestion, but at the same time, like there's also talking to agencies because that's kind of actually who I have to pursue. But I also just have like this ridiculously wide knowledge of production partners, fabrication vendors, obviously the people that are in the technology world, whether that's light art specifically or whether it's, putting together MIDI controllers to do something to make sure that this projection maps onto that, or who knows what. The thing that I love the most is sort of just being part of the computational and the creative problem solving and just like working with various people and partners.
Yeah.
Um, but that was just leading me to chat through the last major fun project I had was with Dog Studios. They're a Belgian-based company, but they have an outpost here in Chicago, and I believe one in Mexico City now, and maybe even further. But they're blowing up.
Dog studios.
Yeah, Dog Studio or Dog Studios.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure, but they're blowing up. They're having a lot of success on the web. But they got hired by Times, the New York Times, to work for a project on Verizon. And you might have seen this on my site, but I kind of got handed this 11 by 17 kind of idea doc from the agency, a budget of about a half mil, and was told to like make it happen. And the two founders of the agency were going to go on their kind of like a family vacation, and the other dude was doing sort of another thing and kind of not to bother him. And they're
The idea
small.
vault. The idea vault is what you're talking
This
about.
is the idea vault. Yes. That only popped up for like all of like 4 hours in New York City, which is pretty wild.
Wow, they
Um,
spent $500,000 on this.
yeah,
Wow.
bro, man, money goes. It's
Yeah.
wild. And the thing
Yeah.
is, the first thing I wanted to do was like, can we please tell them to make this mobile so that it like goes? Because as soon as they see this, it's gonna get, they're gonna want it to be at South by. You know what I mean? They're gonna want to take it on some kind of tour.
Let me ask you something. Why was this? How did the New York Times figure into this? I understand Verizon. I get it. But
So
where did the New York Times come in?
So when I was mentioning with Leviathan, when they were purchased by a group out of the West Coast. I forget their name, but they were a
I
smaller
thought they
company.
got bought. So
It
Leviathan got
did.
bought. Yeah.
Leviathan got bought by, I forget their name. Obscura also got bought by the Madison Square
Madison
Garden
Square
Group, as I
Garden. Yeah,
think is
yeah.
like pretty obvious news in our industry. Another one of the big shops, Fake Love in New York, got purchased by uh, the Times,
I think
or
they
the
went
New
out
York,
of
yeah,
business.
the New York Times.
I
No,
think they
well,
went out of business.
they did since, but they got purchased by the Times, and I'm like,
I was talking to
somehow,
Sophia Aronov, who was a Fake Love. We actually did a
mhm,
podcast like a ways back, and she was telling me about
how it kind of like trickled out. And I'm pretty good friends with Blair Neal too, so we
Okay,
we go back and forth. But
yeah,
I was kind of like chatting with Blair about this. I'm like, why aren't you guys doing this? He's like, we bid on that, and like somehow they outsource it to you. And I'm like, he's like, I'm happy you got it, but anyways, they're like, can we do this? I'm like, I think, but like we need a real dome. Like this isn't like a projection dome, because like we
right.
need to be able to like walk all over this, hang these lights, do all of this cool stuff.
Well, it
But
looks
it
like
was
it's
just,
custom. It looks like it's
it was
totally
fucking
custom.
amazing. But I found this amazing group, and I'll give them a shout out, but they're called Chateau Brooklyn in Brooklyn, basically, deep Bed-Stuy. And as we're getting on the phone with them, they're like, well, we speak French. That's what they speak. One of the languages they speak in Belgium. And he sort of like rattled off something in French, and they're like, got right back to him, kind of like to prove that they like actually do speak French. And they're like, oh, this is fantastic. And I basically just wanted to like literally just like close the computer on those guys and be like, yeah, this is going to go good. And they had the right people for the right job. We didn't work on that project one day past 1 o'clock in the morning. And you know how it like kind of gets towards the end. It was just like 12:30, 11:45.
Yeah.
Okay, we'd have some pizzas or whatever, go get some beers occasionally for like the last like 10 days. Even the setup, we get kicked out of the stage where it was set up, at a very specific time, or like,
Well, let's describe the project because everybody's just listening audio style. But like, it's like a custom dome. It's like a geodesic dome, but it's actually like an exploded geodesic dome. So it's not actually perfectly geodesic. And then inside, it's all mirrors outside, and then on the inside, it's like a hanging pixel array.
yeah, so they wanted it to be all mirrors everywhere. And I'm like, well, that's
Mhm.
cool, but we had a dude doing 3D visualizations for us. And I'm like, can you do it a mirrored version, and can you do a black acrylic version? And it's just sort of me thinking, because I'm like you, Rob, like I do this stuff. A lot of
Yeah,
lights inside this tiny, because it's not huge, it's a dome that can be welded together and broken apart and welded back together. Um, it's going to get wild. And they agreed. They're like, yeah, that's crazy. I was like, look at this black version. And they're like, that's much better. And then it
okay.
was a combination of like, how many lights do we throw in there, And so it became this very Yayo Kusuma inspired infinity room in a weird way. But yeah, it was a Buckminster Fuller, inspired dome, but we did it instead of exclusively triangles, we used hexagons and pentagons, which was like a really crazy build. And
It's
so
really irregular. And that's what I was noticing. Like it's a really cool shape. Like yeah, it looks. Oh, it does look like it's mostly hexagons.
yeah, it's mostly
Pentagon.
hexagons, and there's some pentagons in the middle. It's a lot like a soccer ball.
Looks like a
Um,
goddamn spaceship. Like a
yeah, but that's the other thing is,
like
again,
Flight of the
just
Navigator spaceship, but
my
hexagons.
I don't want to say like my experience, but it's like I didn't want a bunch of little triangles. You don't want to be on the inside of a disco ball. You want to be on the inside of a whatever to have the visual experience go
Right.
further. Because if there's a bunch of little things on the inside, they're going to just kind of bounce around and disappear. But
What's
if
wrong with
there's,
triangles? You don't like triangles? Triangles are great.
I love triangles. But what I'm saying is, if it would have been made out of exclusively triangles, I don't believe that the reflections would have given you as much depth in
Okay, I
your
see what you're
true
saying. Yeah,
visual
totally.
interpretation of it. And then it was, of course, we had
Well,
like
that's
the
the
little,
beauty of previs, right?
yeah,
With
exactly.
previs, you can just like model it all out. You can be like, all right, now I'm inside this thing. What does it look like? It's a
Exactly.
really cool piece, dude.
pre-visiting with a dude in Italy, working with a team in Belgium, designing and fabricating in Brooklyn, and working with a team in Chicago. So it was like 4 or 5 different agencies, 7 different time zones. It was a fun one, and like I said, not having to stay up past midnight was a treat for everybody. It was really, really fun.
So what was it for? Like, what did Verizon want with this thing? What were they doing with it?
They were showing off. It worked in tandem with a TED-like talk with this gentleman named Jeffrey Canada, who works for. Um, he works on a documentary called the Superman Project, which is about essentially enabling, I want to say, uh, underprivileged youth from Harlem to sort of like reinvest in their schools and sort of take that champion on and sort of become better, more interested, involved members of society and sort of give back to their communities and sort of like kind of just like recreate that circle. And what Verizon was doing is essentially not just donating, supposedly air quotes, not just donating, X amount of broadband to public schools, not just donating like here's 1,000 tablets, here's a 3D printer, but they were actually like teaching teachers how to teach, and it was about this sort of escalation of that over the last like 6 or 8 years. And so as you sort of stepped
Yeah.
through the touch platform, the array of LEDs around you kind of had this sort of beautiful kind of animation, 360 sound on the interior, which was another kind of like wild thing that we, brought in somebody to film it or not film it, but like work on the sound design to make sure that it was like kind of like tuned specifically kind of towards the middle of the dome. But
Mm.
yeah, it was
How many
it was
people could, it was a
beautiful.
pretty small dome though, right? There was only like a few people could fit in there, it looks like.
Yeah, because there was a lot of different LEDs and stuff. So we had a little bit of a queue to get in. So I think you could go maybe if you wanted to get real close to your friends, you could get close to like 4 or 5 people up there. But ideally, it was just kind of like a partner or 3 people sort of situation. But if you watch the video, it's hard not to honestly smile with the people that are enjoying it for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I was just watching the video. It's really cool, man. Well, congrats.
And
It sounds like a really cool gig. And that was
yeah,
this
and
year, huh?
that was in 2019, so that was the last like really really fun one that I got to do. And then I'm working on some stuff now that'll be hopefully fun, but a little less, not as light art, not as much cool stuff, but it'll be fun. Keeps me
Yeah.
busy, keeps the pocket full.
It's funny, man, how like it is all about striking that balance between taking gigs that you're really excited about and taking gigs that you're like, well, this will keep the train running for a little while longer. I'm actually we're man, this year we've been blowing the fuck up. It's kind of crazy. And the over the pandemic, we took that time to make kind of like a little sales engine, really work on our marketing, our outreach, and like how we're attracting customers, and it's working, and one of
Awesome.
the yeah, it's some of the things that we're doing now are it's like I'm almost surprised that it works. I don't have any formal business background, no sales experience, no nothing. So I'm kind of just shooting in the dark, being like, I wonder if this will work. I wonder if this will work. We'll try these two things in combination, see if that works. And we're over the past 5 or 6 years, we've created a system that seems like it's working really well. And now, like over the pandemic, we really focused on just dialing in that system, and it's taking off. One of the things that we're doing that I'm really surprised, or really, it was kind of a shot in the dark, and I'm very surprised that it is working, but it is, and that's Google AdWords, and it's kind of crazy. It's like we're such a niche market. I didn't expect that to succeed, but it's
I'm
been
sure
bringing
that
in.
it. Yes,
I am sure that it is working because I ask people when they call, I'm like, "How did you find us?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, well, we Googled it. And you popped up."
my SEO is terrible. Honestly, you can just search my first and last name, and you get like some dude in Colorado. He works in robots, which is cool. But like,
Well,
it's just like
SEO and SEM are two different things, right? Like ads, like setting up an ad word is a different thing than just tuning your
website to try
yeah
to
tuning
exactly.
tuning your website for inbounds and for SEO, and that's actually like we do come up on a lot of different searches organically, but doing the AdWords was like gasoline in a fire, man. It really just propelled things forward quickly. And yeah, we're growing, man. We're hiring more
Awesome.
people, and like we got more projects than
Well,
we.
we don't need to turn this into an interview, but I'll tell you when I get off this project. We can go from there.
We're gonna work together, Will. Like Bill, we're gonna do a project together. I know we
I would
are.
love to. I would love to because, like I said, they did try to bring me into Leviathan for kind of like a permalance sort of thing, and it was just like I was replacing a girl that had kind of been there and grown with them very organically.
Yeah,
And it's like they had some very senior staff, and it was good, and it was whatever. But it was like she'd worked there for 6 years, and it was like I am a different type of producer than she was. She is fantastic, and she's continuing her career. I think out in Philadelphia,
yeah.
with Blue Cadet, and
Is Blue Cadet another new media arts
mhm,
design firm?
yeah, they're doing. I think it's Philly, and I think they had opened up a shop in New York too.
Cool.
Um, yeah, there's everybody. Everybody wants some piece of the pie. But yeah, when I worked there, it was interesting. We worked on a handful of projects, and then when they were acquired, they couldn't quite figure out why they were paying me what they were paying me. And I was like, "Well, I moved from California, so I." And then it was just like snip, and I was like, "All right, let's make this like let's just call it what it is." Like we all knew this was a pretty much a permalance thing, and they're like, "Yeah, let's call it that. Throw us on the resume if you want. I'll give you a solid recommendation if you need it." Jason will call me up every once in a while if he's got some crazy idea, and I was like, "I'll jump on the phone with you. I'll wrap you. I'll be your producer for the hour if you need me to be." But
Yeah,
it's fun.
dude, Blue
It's just
Cadet looks like a very cool firm as well.
they do great
I
stuff.
haven't heard of them either, man. There's like this whole
See,
world of other firms that I've just never heard of.
it's all about, for me at least, it's all about people, and it's all about just like knowing people and trying not to burn any bridges.
Of course, man. That's what everything that we see around us is interactions between people. Like go and like pick up something off your desk, like this roll of tape. Think about all the relationships that had to happen and people that had to coordinate and companies that had to be built and design. It's like this roll of fucking electrical tape is the product of a lot of interpersonal relationships.
And that's just the role of electrical tape.
I know, man. But that's what I'm saying. Like the world is connections between people.
Yeah, it totally is. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've found about. I don't know. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but like I know a lot of people at a lot of different places, and it's just. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Range, and it's just called basically the generalist goal for success in their work, like in society or something like that. Because like kind of what I am, you know what I mean? Like I don't do touch designer. I'm not an expert in that. Like I'm not you. I don't own a lighting design company that's sort of like dominating the globe based on my search engine optimization and Google AdWords. I'm not. I'm
Dude.
not a creative. I'm not a creative director. You know what I mean? Which sometimes I look and I'm like, man, it would be really easy to work for an agency and just like ask a production company to like make things happen and just expect it to get done. Like I don't do these things, but just knowing the right people that can help you get them done is like kind of where I found a really good role to operate in, and not being the dumbest person in the room, or at least not asking the dumbest question, is something that is always a good thing as well. I always like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, there's so many pieces that are involved, man. Like, I think that I'm actually like my intrinsic superpower, my like skill is probably project management and electrical design. You know what I mean? But it's like in the end, it's the ability to put together the correct team to match a project that that is the marker of success for some of the, for really any big project. Like without the right team, you got nothing. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you have to have the right people on the team, and any one of those people's skill sets inevitably is indispensable to the completion of a big project. You pull any one of those people out and the project would not succeed. And that's how a good team should be put together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if you obviously the unlimited budgets that we had at Dolly became a really fun thing to play around with because our teams could become a whole lot of fun based on Uncle Larry and
Well, that's
Sergey.
after they got bought, right?
It
But
was
they were
after we got
forward.
bought, but
Yeah.
box demo, we threw a lot of money at box demo, which was fun. But the goal of box demo was ultimately, I think, to become acquired. But it won some awards and did the things. But you're absolutely right in what you were saying is building a good team around you and having confidence in those people to be able to achieve the things that they say they're going to be able to pull off for you is is key. And I don't know. I don't mean to break it down to iPhones and things, or whatever, but like, yo, we all got phones and recorders in our pockets. Like, is it working or is it not? Like, can you show me what you've got? And if it's not like coming and coming quickly, it's like,
Right.
that's when I start to like, if I can't even get it on the side, it doesn't have to come with all the clients and other team members, but if I can't even get like a side report, um,
What do you mean? So what do you mean side report? I don't
I don't
understand.
know. It was just me digging back to some old projects. I don't know. It's all
Well,
good.
it is all about that. Like, I call like your portfolio is kind of like your suit coat. It's like the three-piece suit that you have to wear. And it's like, if you don't have a good portfolio, you got nothing. No one's going to, if people can't go to your website and see sexy pictures and sexy video right off the bat, that's what people react to. That's their first impression. You know what I mean?
I I agree. Actually, sometimes when I have to do, SOW or not SOWs, but when I have to do bids for groups and companies, like I will absolutely put in a fee for documentation, and a lot of times it'll get pushed
Oh
back.
yeah.
I'm like, you know what? If you don't document this the correct way, you know who's going to see it? All
No one.
300 or 3,000 people that roll through. They might Instagram it. Maybe they'll have a few extra tags on that, but nobody.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean, if you're working in the marketing world and you're doing like marketing installations, then it's of the utmost importance. There's
oh,
always a documentation line item in the projects that we do, even if it's not, even if it's opaque to the client. I always build it in because
mhm.
if you don't film it, it didn't happen. If you don't document it, it didn't happen.
Opaque. I like that word. I've been trying to think of something that's not white label because that's obviously a word, but just in the back of my mind, like, but opaque's kind of interesting.
Opaque's a great word. I love that word.
Opaque is interesting. Something that's just so because that's arguably like I don't mind just sort of like you said, just sort of opaque to the client or whatever it needs to be. But
Yeah. Well, there's always things in the budget that it's like, well, maybe the client doesn't need to see all the way down into this fucking rabbit hole, but
well, yeah, and flights are always, whatever they want to be. But flights are $500 each way, whether I'm coming from New York to, uh, but sorry, that's the wrong reference. New York to Boston. I was going to say L.A. to San Francisco, or it might be a little bit more if I got to go L.A. to New York, kind of a thing. But like,
I'll tell you, man, after doing some really gnarly red eyes, there are certain instances where I will I will get first class or business class or something that I can lay down on, because like when you get on a flight at 9 p.m. and you fly all night, a
and
you get to a site at like 6 in the morning and you're
and then you're
expected
supposed
to
to
function.
roll.
Nope. I am too old for that shit.
Ex- Call me 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
call
And it's
me 10
funny how
years
that like
ago.
it just talk about aura rings and like sleep quality, because it really affects you. And I was actually like I have a freaking awesome PM that, or she's not really a PM. She's like, I don't know what to call her. Anyway, she buys my flights, and we had like a long conversation. I was like, homie, like if you put me on a flight at 9 p.m. and I got to do something at like 10 a.m. the next day, don't put me on that 9 p.m. flight, or get me a goddamn hotel so I can sleep it off. It's as bad as being drunk, man. Like trying to
It's
function.
worse.
Yeah, trying to
It might
function.
be worse.
Yeah, man. It's a
Yeah,
thing.
and
It's a thing. These are things that, when you're 20, you're just like, whatever, fuck it. I'll
exactly.
save that $500. It's like, no, I will pay that
Mhm.
$500 and
Exactly,
sleep on that
exactly.
airplane.
Yeah.
So
Um,
what were you doing at Bot and Dolly, man? That's digging into your past, but I want to know. I mean, like, what was the culture there like? What was that like?
it was crazy. If Jeff Linnell ever hears this, Jeff, love you, but you are a horrible person to work for. He knows it just as much as he.
Burn that bridge, baby.
Exactly. No. He would probably laugh if he heard me say that. No, I was working at Obscura, loved it, but then I was peeking my head around the corner because they literally were like 4.5 blocks away. They were both in the dog patch at the time, and
Did you go from Obscura to Bot?
exactly. Um, I was returning something down to whatever that little, you know, what was the name of that little electronics store down in just sort of South Mission on a whatever. But anyways, I was coming back and popped in front of the little Bot and Dolly. I didn't even know it was Bot and Dolly, but it had this like great tag on the front that sort of said like, "Please never ever 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 little park here," sort of thing. But it was like the garage door was like halfway kicked open, and I was like, "What are you guys doing in here?" And they're like, "Oh, we're tasting coffee and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, well, who are you? And I was like, I'm Bill. I'm a producer over at Obscura. And they're like, oh, interesting. Do you want a coffee? And I was like, sure. Let's do that. And they're like, do you want to come into the back? And I was like, yeah. What is this place? And they're like, oh, we're Autofuss. I was like, oh, I've called you guys for a quote or something like that. And they're like, we have some other things that we kind of wanted to like just come into the back and like pop back into this like the studio that like we shot a lot of the stuff in where we shot box demo, and there's these like two robots. They've got stuff on them, they're moving people around, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And at the time, I'm not seeing robots. It was like the first time I saw like a wind turbine, you know what I mean, where it's just like, whoa, is that like the future kind of thing? And I'm like, this place is awesome. They've
It's
got
like I
this
just walked into
weird,
the future. Man, that's so
basically
crazy.
they're like,
So they were keeping it
we've got
under
this
wraps. They were very secretive about what they were doing.
kind of, the robotic element was like about to be birthed, basically, because I basically did like one of their first, not their first, but like a couple of their first installations. Their first IO installation, I think, was the first like official piece that I did with them. But again, we want to talk about like computational thinking and like creative problem solving. It's all sorts of stuff, like figuring out like Brownian motion. I'm like, I don't know what Brownian motion is. I kind of learned it really
What does that?
quick,
Yeah, what does
but
that even mean? What is Brownian motion?
Brownian motion is essentially ensuring that a heavy object, this massive sphere that we had on the end of this robot, never actually came to a full stop, as like the full weight of it would kind of like, I don't want to say tip the robot, but like push the robot to its limit. And so we always kind of had to keep a what's ultimately described as Brownian motion. I'm sure there's a beautiful YouTube video if anybody's thoroughly interested on the robot.
I was gonna say I'll
So
YouTube that later.
exactly. But essentially, we had fantastic, roboticists, engineers, developers that were working with us to help program this. Also, then at the same time, it's on a ledge at the Moscone Center in San Francisco. We need to find a structural engineer that will sign off on like this 15,000 pound sculpture. Well, like, it's not going to break the ledge, but still, somebody needed to sign off on this like 3 days ago. And I'm like,
So I actually
okay,
only saw that in their studios. Like the video, the promo video that they made, it's in their warehouse. Did they install it like in a permanent fashion somewhere, or did that go
the
anywhere?
that kinetosphere is the name of
No,
that
the
sculpture.
box. The box.
Box. It only happened once, my man.
Really?
I mean, it happened a lot of times, but the kind of the full expedition of it, or the full shoot of it, was essentially squeezed into, a month and a half kind of a thing.
Right.
And we were constantly working. You kind of asked me what was Bot and Dolly like. It was constantly working. We wouldn't finish a project and properly close it out before we were, had our head into three or four other situations. And it was an exciting place to be. It drove me a little crazy, but at the same time, I met some amazing people. And yeah, it was wild. It was great. It was the playground that I'm so happy was designed for me. Like, as much as I said I hate Jeff, I also love Jeff for everything that he did, and his partner
Was
Randy
he
and
was he
Julia.
like the
And
founder or something, or what was Jeff's
yeah,
role?
Jeff and Randy were the two founders of Bot and Dolly and Autofuss.
This really is like the natural conclusion of projection mapping. It is projection mapping taken to like a totally different level where the structure being projected on becomes part of the magic and becomes part of the illusion. It's fucking
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
and we had Bradley. Everybody knows him as GMunk, as like our design director on that project. And
I didn't know GMunk was part of that. Interesting.
oh, everybody calls it GMunk's project, and it, I kind of laugh because as much as he influenced that project, there's not a single person that worked on that project that doesn't deserve a ginormous hug, a huge handshake, and like their own SIGGRAPH award. You know what I mean? Like, it was a full collective team effort to produce Box Demo. Everybody from Autofuss that actually put together the animations for the project. Everybody from Bot and Dolly that put together, the robotic animations for that project. Everybody
Yeah.
from sort of our collective team that did the live action shoot, and put together like just the like analog lights and things. And then, the team that we hired that did it, the late nights, the early mornings, it was wild. As well as the fact that we were constantly unplugging everything, pulling it all apart, and operating the studio as if it was continuously running and selling ourselves literally at the same time. It was
Did you
crazy.
know that you were going to try and attract Google as a buyer, or what was the goal? Like, what was the point? If it was just a tech demo, were you just like, look what we can do? Somebody buy us?
I think we were a little young to know, no, but like, it was obvious that, Adobe was coming through, Autodesk was coming through, Apple was coming through, Google was coming through. Whether Facebook came through, and I have no idea, but like, there was eyes on us from, I don't want to say from everywhere, but like, somebody was going to buy us.
Right.
Did we need to complete Box Demo in order to get purchased? I'm not sure, but it definitely didn't hurt. Let's just put it that way.
It's
But it was
brilliant,
so much
man. It's like
fun.
one of the coolest projection mapping pieces that's ever been done, I think.
And I will credit, both the whole design team, but arguably GMunk did have a pretty strong presence in making it a black and white piece. And it
What was his role? I was actually going to ask. What was his role in the process?
if you've never worked,
He's another like kind of legendary figure. He's yeah, I
he
mean,
is, he absolutely is. I mean, he is kind of a legend. He arguably acts as the design director. He's I mean, if you want to talk about light art, like, he's at the pinnacle of light art.
yeah.
Redirecting his photography and shooting chroma and all sorts of stuff. But he was the design director behind that piece, but also on set constantly, and was amazing leader for the full animation team that built it together. And it was wild what he was able to do, and just sort of continued to direct and push. And I don't know if this is a great example, but somebody would be like, I'm having frustrations with, with this sequence. He'd be like, it's a lot like, and he'd reference something that he'd previously done. But if you push all these, if you push all these sliders up, and if you flop that, you're going to get this like this wild effect. And then they'd kind of do that, and they're like, is it kind of like this? And be like, yeah, definitely, like try that a couple different more ways. And he just like really push each one of his team members to like make it as good as it is. And he does that wherever he's working, and any project that he's on. And again, we were talking, it's all about people. It's all about people. He's a fantastic person. He's a great person to know. And
Now, is
yeah,
he in the Bay, or where? Because he was working for Obscura as well, wasn't he?
yeah, he I believe he's still in the Bay. He does a lot of work with my friend Michael Fulton at VT Pro. In fact, a handful of my friends have all ended up at VT Pro down in LA.
Is that that's
Um,
Velo? That's Velo Verkhouse's.
no, that's V squared.
No, no, no. V squared is on pause or no more, and they started another thing.
VT
Yeah,
Pro is
what is
Vart. And I forget his last name starts with a T, and it's TECH consonants and things. Sorry, Vart. And then, but Michael Foman is a really good friend and close colleague of mine. And then a handful of other people work over there that I'm super tight with as well. But he occasionally does collaborations with those guys. And I at times he's on Tool's roster. He may still be. He tours when the world's open. He tours the world and does stuff with various creative conferences all over the world.
Wait,
FITC.
he tours with Tool.
No, tours the world and does creative conferences. He'll do FITC up in Canada. He'll do.
Oh,
Uh,
VT Pro. I've seen some of their work,
they do amazing stuff. They're like, I don't want to call them like the
and it
best.
looks
Like,
like they took over. They do a Bot and Dolly style.
yeah, they when Bot
I'm
and
like
Dolly
looking at their website right now.
when Bot and Dolly was acquired by Google, Michael, yeah, I mean, I don't want to like go all the way back, but yeah, it was a deep history. Like Michael almost worked with Bot and Dolly for a while. Instead, he ended up working with VT Pro and was obviously very interested by robots. And they embodied what Bot and Dolly was doing and kind of adopted that style, as have a lot of people. Um,
Right.
Good friends again, like with like Evan Atherton, who works at Autodesk, and he runs the Pier 9, the Maya for Mimic for Maya is a program that he runs. And so, like, I don't want to say that Bot and Dolly was like significantly in front of its time, but we were sort of the very first to sort of like hack the system and kind of recreate what you could do with it. And now there's a lot of people out there that are playing around with it. And I actually just read an article that X had the most recent company graduate, or however they do it in their program, but it's a robotics company that is going to start allowing you to drive your own robot. Robot, that sounded weird, but you'll be able to drive your own robot in a very easy way. So we'll see. I think it's called uh, sorry, pull this tab up.
I'm just going through VT Pro's roster, man, and it's fucking cool. They
Yeah,
they have some really cool installations.
Intrinsic is the company that Google X just launched, and a handful of my former colleagues at VT Pro, or excuse me, at Bot and Dolly work there, and that would have potentially been where I would have continued to do if I would have hung on and not started doing my own thing. But I'm happy that I did, because here we are, Rob, you and me, hanging
Here
out,
we are.
hanging
Here we
out.
are. Actually, I saw their Telestron. Their this
Telestron
Telestron. Yeah, I saw that at this light art festival
down in
in
Houston.
Texas. Yeah, yeah.
Dope. I didn't
I
get
was
to go
working
that
with
year.
yeah, I was working with Play Modes on another installation at that festival.
Day for night.
Yeah, day to night.
Day for
Yeah.
night, or day, yeah, something along those lines. Alex Sertanowski or something like that was the curator of that at times, or at the time.
Well, it was really interesting because it was a music festival. But it was also
It was
It was
both,
very much
man.
a light art festival. It was
I
like a
think it was
huge
the
warehouse with light installations, and then it was, you know,
and it was a
A-list
dope
bands.
music festival. I thought
Yeah,
it was the biggest music, or excuse me, the biggest light festival that the States has thrown.
it is. It's funny because in Europe, light festivals
Lyon,
are,
wherever.
well, they're a thing. Like for example, White Void right now they're on the cover of Arc magazine, dude, for their installation at what the fuck is it? Dark Matter.
Yeah, the one that drops the balls, and yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's not that particular installation, but they actually opened, like, it's almost like a museum or experiential center where it's just light art pieces. And the
So
cool
cool.
thing is, you go over there and people pay to see like light performances in the same way that people will go to a concert over here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wish we had that culture. I mean, maybe we do. Maybe people just aren't doing it, but it's
There's a
cool to see an entire stadium fill up, or an entire arena fill up, with
night after
people.
night after night.
Yeah, waiting to see a light art performance, like a fine art performance with music, but very much focused on the light, not the sound per se. And it's just very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Those guys are a fun crew over there for sure. Did you
Yeah.
go and see that thing at the Gray Area when they were there maybe 4 years back, and they were doing that laser performance?
No, White Void,
One of the members of White Void,
probably
Christopher. Yes,
Christopher
he was.
Bowder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He
no,
liked.
I didn't, man. I didn't. I wish I had, though. I didn't know
It
that
was.
they didn't know that they
Yeah,
did
it
a
was
thing
fun.
there.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was,
Gray Area has another show now that I'm actually tempted to go see. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's what the fuck is it called? It's Recombinant Rebound, and it's like a projection mapping environment. Looks pretty interesting. 360-degree immersive adventure in surround sound and
well,
spatial.
if it's recombinant, then the like one of the original Obscura dudes is way behind it.
They're
Um,
reforming, man. Obscura is reforming right now, or uh,
MOM.
yeah. So they're
I
it's
told you I know
it's
some
not
shit.
Obscura. It's like a bunch of people involved in the Obscura.
Yeah, it's Alex and Travis and
I don't know if
not
Travis is.
not human
I don't
would
know
be
if
there
Travis is
if.
involved, man. Like, I think it's a bunch of their touch developers.
Oh,
They
that's
have
cool too.
they have a new thing, and I was actually
Nice.
just talking to them because we might work together on a project. But it's cool to see, and they're actually headquartered at uh, Gray Area. They have their offices there. So
Cool. Oh, where uh Symmetry Labs was, right?
was Symmetry at Gray Area? I have no
The,
idea.
yeah, they were there. But we don't need to talk about that.
I talked, dude. I'm actually. It's funny. I work with a lot of the X Symmetry people. Like, many of the X Symmetry people are like kind of in the DA orbit now, and we're
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
we're
just
just.
I'm just shooting the breeze, but that was always a funny story. I thought.
Hey, man, that's a part of the Bay Area light art scene. There,
Absolutely,
it's history. You got to embrace it.
it's history. Yeah, exactly.
I have no beef with any of them, and
I don't
I
have any
love a
beef
lot of
with
those
any of
guys.
them either. I just think it's funny.
Yeah,
I don't even really know this story. I just think it's like, well, you guys aren't there anymore for some, I guess, obvious reasons. I'm not sure, but
yeah. Well, it's tragic,
cheers.
but Alex
Yeah,
Green is back. Actually, I heard that he's back and he's looking to reform. So
good. I'm happy to hear
as
that.
long as he's willing to share his former employees with me, I'm all about it.
I have I don't. He would probably couldn't point me out in the crowd, and I'm not sure if I could anymore either. But yeah, it's always fun. I enjoyed them having that kind of upper tier of the gray area space, and also just love what the gray area kids have done and are continuing to do for our like scene sequence, everything. It's like super important.
Well, it is the most. I don't even know the word for it, but it is the most like, you know, black pants, black shirt, black beret types. You know, it's like that art scene. You know what I mean? It's like fucking weird,
I,
glitchy music and like
I
really
like
experimental. Yeah,
I joked that I had to quit Obscura because I really liked wearing colorful clothes, and everybody in there just wore all black all the time. And I was
yeah.
like, you guys, I like colors, you know, like I have a lot more colorful clothes over there. It just happened to be a black shirt day for me, but I figured that would work out well because I'm sure that you would probably be in black. But I was like, yeah, you guys, I like loud sneakers, I like loud pants, I like wild sweatshirts. Just just a thing. So this all black thing,
That is
I'm not
so
sure I
funny,
can
man.
fit in.
Yeah, that's funny. That's definitely the vibe. It's like I was in Berlin. The last time I was in Berlin, I went to the Bergheim. You know that club?
I mean, I
Yeah.
think I've heard of it, but I've never gone. I've never been. I've only been to Europe once.
This club in Berlin, man, and it's hilarious because it's like this long fucking line to get in, and there's a bouncer, and everybody is like in the dress code. You know what I mean? It's like black clothes. That's it. And you know, to my surprise, we got in. It was probably because I was with the girl that I was with. We like got let in. We got into the club. And it's just like fucking gabbercore, man. I'm talking like it sounds like somebody's shooting a machine gun into a microphone. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. This is a cultural experience, and it was fun. But like, there was this part of me. I'm like, man, all I want is like a rainbow onesie under all these black clothes. Just like rip off the black clothes and be like, surprise, motherfuckers. It's such a funny scene, man. But it's you
Yeah,
know, it's cool. It's like I like the Berlin scene. I like that vibe. I think I could live over there and like be happy. You know what I mean? I really do. There's many times when I've considered moving to Europe. It's just I don't know if I could do what I do and do it remotely to that extent. You know, I don't.
you'd. Yeah, I mean, we're working with a guy in Sweden right now, and it's just like I'm emailing him at like 4 or 5, and it's like it's only 5 hours, 6 hours from where I'm at, but it's just like, and he'll get back to me, and I'm like, man, they work a. I mean, it's a long day. You know what I'm
Well, I tell
saying?
you,
Like,
man. Depending on what happens with the smoke this year in California, I may actually go and do. We're entering into like a number of design phases essentially, and
hmm
I'm so tempted to just go to Europe or go to Mexico and just hang out, rent an apartment down there, and just like kick it.
or
I've got a
go
friend.
anywhere. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
literally anywhere. Like it doesn't matter. I'm kind of wondering like why am I forced to be in a city? Why are you forced to be in the Bay? You know what I'm saying? Like who cares at this point? We just got real good at figuring this whole thing out, you know?
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that in the end, that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, technically, even right now, man, like I've wrapped up all of these physical installs, the build phase for a number of different projects, and we're entering into the design phase of a number of other projects. And the things we're still building are, you know, like they're out in the British Virgin Islands anyway. It's like I have to fly there no matter what. It's a $1,500 flight no matter what.
Yeah,
Whether I fly from, you know, Paris or fucking Mexico or wherever, it'd probably be cheaper actually if I was in Mexico.
it probably would be.
Yeah,
How's your Spanish?
it's decent. You know, like I'm approaching. I'm like skimming conversational. I'm like I can navigate a bar situation really well. You know, I can find the bathroom. I can get more beer. I can talk
Okay.
about. I can like shoot the shit a little bit. It's all about
You can
hand gestures and eye contact anyway, man. It's like facial expressions and eye contact and like the barest minimum of like 2-year-old Spanish will get you by pretty well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you're not going to make any best friends, but at the same time, you can definitely like hang out.
And not to mention, like at least the scene or the sequence, at least in our space, like everybody speaks English. It just kind of is an exclusive language of I don't know. I don't want to say of at least the Western world's progressive culture. But if you're not able to speak English, it feels like, let's just say we got lucky. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, I actually, when I was doing that tour of Europe, the European like
It
light art agencies, I noticed that 90% of them, like 90% of the places and people I visited had, I was able to communicate with in English.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's
if they're
just
they're
lucky.
they're trying to sell projects to English speaking clients.
Exactly. I mean, we just got lucky, to be quite honest. I mean, I speak a little bit better Spanish than you, but not much.
Yeah,
You're second grade, I'm fourth grade. You know what I'm saying? But like,
yeah.
I lived in Chile for a little while, but
Let's go to Mexico, man. Let's go to Mexico together. That'd be fun.
yeah, I've spent a handful of times down in Mexico City. We have a great time down there. Some beautiful architecture, although it's sinking. It is sinking, but you know, we don't need to start talking about that. But you know,
Is it? I know it's in a basin. It's in a lake bed.
yeah, if the time to go is now, but don't buy anything down there.
Really? You think
Just,
Mexico City's going to disappear?
I mean, it's not. It's like the world's one of the world's most dangerous places.
Tectonically, you're talking about.
Yeah, just in regards of like places to be, like it's not a like a healthy place. Like in regards to like, yeah, the things that are shifting in and around it. I mean, surely
Well, they've
there's
also got shit
worse
airport.
places that you could be, but like,
Yeah, their
yeah,
air situation is pretty gnarly as well.
yeah.
Like the air because it's a basin, man. I was actually just talking to my friend who she's a creative director. She lives in Mexico City. She does more of like the interior design thing, but she's we were talking about how yeah, she's in love with Mexico City. I'm going to go visit her pretty soon. I'm going to make a trip just because like I want to hang out. But she was telling me like, yeah, man, like there we are under constant threat of earthquake, like
That's what I
worse than
mean.
worse than LA, and the air pollution is atrocious. It's horrible.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty down there though, but it is like one of those things. Like you just got to catch it on the right days. But
Right. Well,
Mexico's
I think
beautiful.
what I would, you know, what I think I would do. I would probably go to Mexico City and then use that as a launching off point to like Chiapas or the Yucatan or whatever.
Oaxaca, beautiful.
Yeah, Oaxaca. I've got some friends down there too.
Yeah, we spent some
Yeah.
time in Oaxaca, which is pretty fun, and then traveled down a little further south than that, down to Guatemala. I think did Largo Atayan, and hiked the
Cool.
volcano and did some stuff. But you know, just travel stories and things.
Well, the last time I was
Um,
in Mexico, I was with a partner. We started in a little town called Bacalar, which is south of Tulum, and we rented
mhm,
a car. We drove uh, to San Cristobal through
mhm.
Chiapas, and that was some shit, man. That was such a good experience. It was crazy.
That
It was
is a
like,
little crazy.
yeah, we're going through those mountains. It's like the Zapatistas. That's where they are. And they're like, they have these little kids. They stretch a chain across the road, and they're like, "Hi, we're little kids. We would like a donation, please." And there's like some dudes with machine guns, like kind of like standing behind them, and it's like, okay, well, this is a toll, and I'm happy to donate to your cause.
I mean, that's pretty wild. Like, I mean, we've done some pretty wild shit before as well, but not in. Trying to think if I've done anything too crazy in Mexico. No, most of the crazy stuff I've done is in Asia with some dumb friends in Burma,
Yeah, Southeast
Thailand,
Asia.
Vietnam,
S-
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia is definitely one of my favorite places, my
Yeah,
favorite
I had a
areas of the world.
yeah, I have a good friend that got stuck via COVID on a Thailand island. Just like, well, I guess I'm living here for until COVID's over, and he's just like he's and honestly like independently wealthy, but he's able to like get by. And I'm just like, oh, that's terrible. And he just checks in every once
Wow.
in a while, sends beautiful like kayaking videos and stuff. He's just like, yeah, this is how I have to live out COVID. Nobody's got COVID on our island, so nobody comes, nobody goes, but you know, it's okay. I'm like, sucks, Julian. Sucks, my man.
So in the islands that we were doing that installation on, it's a really crazy like political situation because
Mm,
they also locked down. When we were there last year, I was actually in the BBIs when COVID struck, and we like
mm,
watched that shit. We were there in March, April of 2020. So we watched it hit China. We watched it hit like Italy. We saw all our friends freak the fuck out in California, and like no one was saying anything on these islands. Like there were some articles in the newspaper, like, oh, this is all a 5G conspiracy. Like in the newspaper, this is, that's the culture. It's like very conspiratorial. And then all of a sudden, we were like, all right, so we like stocked up on food when all of our friends freaked out in California. We're like, we should probably start paying attention to this. And then it was like house arrest. And they're like, you cannot leave your apartment. You cannot walk your dog. You cannot take out your trash. And they let everybody out for like a couple days. And we got on a speedboat and like fled to the USVI. That's why this project's taken so long, man, because it's just like disaster.
because COVID was in the way, and it
Well, there was COVID. Then before that, there was a hurricane that like lifted the roof off one of the adjacent villas and dropped it on the roof
oh
that of the villa that we're working on. It's yeah, man, it's a thing. It's just
it's
disaster.
for is it private residence or what is it? A private building?
Yeah, yeah, it's a private residence. It's
Cool.
the same guy that we built that art car for.
Oh, okay. Very
But like
cool.
Larry Page has an island out there. Fucking Richard Branson's got an island out there. They're all right there.
Just go fishing down there and just see who you run into.
Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about the opening party, man. That's going to be some shit. It's
And what do you mean?
the opening party for the installation.
Oh, yeah. That'll probably be wild.
Yeah. So wait, let me show you this. Let me show you what we were working on.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh, all right, so this is a video of the island. This is a view of like the surrounding vista. And you can see it's just like ocean, mountains in the distance, like mountainous islands, and then there are these Southeast Asian style pagodas.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the main pagoda, it's there's this staircase that winds its way up, spiral staircase. It winds its way up to a like a hot tub on a roof. Um, and then the staircase is surrounded by this bamboo weave. It's not bamboo. It's ipe hardwood, and that weave is impregnated with LED, so it forms like kind of a circular array that goes up.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that surrounds this staircase. Um, this is all test pattern. Like it's still a few trips away from being finished, but you can see what's happening and you can see what we're doing. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's gonna be it's gonna be a good portfolio piece.
I mean, it looks stunning. It's
Yeah, it's
beautiful, Rob.
thanks, man. So
It's really
we're actually
pretty.
using we're mapping that volumetrically. So we're doing like a 3-dimensional, because you see that the ceiling is also, it's got LED as well. So it's really like this. It's a 3-dimensional volumetric
Yeah,
pixel mapping.
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's very cool, man. Thanks for sharing that with me. That's exciting. It's neat to think about that and like just also then think through how that could work in the 3D space. It's just a different thing as opposed to be like, well, what kind of pattern are we going to do on the outside of this? But really think about like how you could like circulate or move objects through that as opposed to, like I said, just laying something on it in a 2-dimensional world. It's cool.
Well, so there's other elements that kind of extend throughout the rest of the property. So the
Hmm.
entire property is a canvas, but it's a 3-dimensional canvas.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
the
no,
whole point, is like, let's treat this like a 3-dimensional canvas. So this isn't just like a series of, unfolded 2-dimensional planes. It's actually like pixels in space, and let's map that.
I think that's beautiful. I love being able to like switch my head around and be able to like kind of think through those things, and it takes me a little bit longer, but I'm able to catch up and able to like, work that in my mind as opposed to other people that I'm sure they're like, huh? What are you talking about? Sort of a thing. But like, yeah, it's just one of those things that it's just like a slow learn, but it's just like, yeah, it's there. It makes sense to me.
I want all of
So
our projects to be mapped volumetrically, even if they're
it's
like,
beautiful.
if there's many elements inside one environment, then map it in a game engine. You know what I mean? Like
Are
make
you
it so
building it in
all.
Unity?
No, we're actually doing this in Smode, which is a
Oh,
French.
okay.
Yeah, it's like
I
it's
haven't heard of Smode really. I've worked with what's the one that starts with T?
touch
It's
designer.
well, well, there's that one. No, I want to call it Twist or Twitch. Twitch. It's not Twitch because that's
It's on Twitch.
this. It's not Twitch. There's somebody that's in Vegas. We programmed a club in Vegas with it. I don't know. Anyways, go back.
Yeah, I mean it's I
Notch.
think
It's Notch.
oh
That's what it
Notch.
is.
So Notch
Sorry.
is just content generation.
Exactly.
Yeah, Notch actually like plugs into Disguise or some of the major media server platforms will use
Okay.
Notch as a plugin, and it will Notch is what you generate your content with.
Okay.
But it's meant to feed three-dimensional content into a three-dimensional mapping software, which is really what like why it's become the de facto content generation platform of choice for some of the major media server platforms like Disguise, because you can actually generate 3D content, pipe it directly into your mapping platform.
And see it in real
And
time, arguably, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's actually like I was really fascinated with the idea of using like the Unreal Engine
Hmm.
to do three-dimensional mapping for a while. I just couldn't find the right talent. But again, man, we're starting to work with this Obscura offshoot, and I think that we're gonna do. I think we're gonna start working with their media server platform. Like we're agnostic, man. Like I don't really care what platform we use as long as it can do what we need it to do. And I come from a media server background. I used to do concert touring, and that's so I like there's many different flavors of like Pepsi and Coke and whatever that will like do these things. You just have to know, all right, like this is the end result that we need to accomplish, and this is like these are the capabilities of the system that we need the system to have. um yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Ah, my man, it's getting a little late Central Time. You got any more
Well, let's
offshoots,
call it then, man. This has
topics
been a
you
really
wanna
good conversation.
wrap through? I've had a good time. I know I've like
Yeah,
spilled
no,
some
let's.
beans, but I've got a few more. But we can pick it up in the next episode. We don't have to record it. We can whatever. But man, thank you for sharing some of the work you're into. I'm obviously interested in like continuing to watch that gas in the fire explode for DA, and yeah, continue to work through myself. And like I said, I would love to be able to mash up with you sometime in the near future, in the far future. And like I said, like if anything, I think I've shared with you the fact that I just know a lot of people. And like to think that I know what they're up to most of the time. And
I think
yeah,
that's
man.
that's actually like, yeah, man, that's a really valuable characteristic, man. Like knowing who to call and knowing who to call on in any particular situation. That's super important. But yeah, man,
Yeah,
I'm glad we got to have this conversation. It's been really good getting to know you better. And like I
yeah.
said, I'm sure we will work together. I think
It's
that
been kind of a funny face to face. It kind of more of a little. I mean, we've obviously met and rapped on a handful of things, but yeah, it's been a good conversation. I appreciate it, man. It's good.
absolutely, brother.
Like I
All right,
said,
man.
thanks for pushing it forward. I'm looking forward to anything that we need to do to like clarify this at the end or whatever. Like, just let me know. I have no idea how you wrap these things up.
This is it. No, I mean, that's it. Let's just wrap it.
All right, my man. Well, cheers. We'll sign off of the Zoom, sign off of the Zencology or whatever it is, and thanks for making it happen. And I'm happy that I was one of your guests, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. All right. I'll talk to you later, Bill.
All right, my man. Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Peace.